afternoon, everybody. Wherever you're listening from. It's a great day. We got a little intro music here as we kick it off. I'm Landon Rank, and today I'm joined by the man from Sports Talk Denver. This guy has been carrying Broncos Nation for the last year and a half, right? Year and a half now going on, Ben. He's been there every single day, I think, making content. It's always one of my favorite things I look forward to. We got the man here. Quick collab today. How you doing today?
Living my best life, dude. Football's back. It's like, man, you're okay with summer leaving as long as you get football back, and Broncos are looking incredible. So I'm super, super hyped, man.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. Sorry, there was an echo in my video, but I've been doing good, man. I've been just enjoying my summer last couple of weeks. Excited football's back, man. It's always a great time when Broncos football comes around this season. There's kind of that month period when we were back in June where we were like we didn't have much to do, man. There was no NFL, no nothing. So just now that we actually have some preseason football to look forward to, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, man. What are you're gonna watch WNBA and the
Yeah,
Colorado Rockies?
I'm
No
Iowa
way.
fan. I'm a Caitlin Clark fan, but I did go to the Rockies game last Wednesday, but the poor Rockies have not been doing too well. So finally, we have a team that can win games, win more than a couple games a month, and it's so amazing. So yeah, thanks again for coming on the show. Obviously, I said we're going to open up by kind of introducing you, like what you've been doing and just kind of breaking down about why you got this purpose. So I guess I'll just ask you this question to start. Like, why did you do this? Why did you start this about a year and a half ago? Like, what was your kind of motivation?
Yeah, so I born, raised in Colorado, actually worked in the school district you went to and absolutely loved it. And during COVID, the cost of living in Colorado got redonkulous. And so, yeah, so we had our fourth kid and my wife was like, hey, I want to move by my family in Michigan. And I miss talking Broncos with my friends at work so much that I was like, and I would just like do voice memos where I would talk about it. And I'm like, hey, all I do is eat, drink, and sleep the Broncos. So I might as well put it out there and see if other people want to talk Broncos too. And like, I think I just refreshed. I think I'm about to hit 27,000 subs. So it's been a wild journey, man. And it makes me way less homesick.
Yeah, I know. I read some of the comments sometimes in your videos, and you'll see people from different countries, people from all over the world. I mean, Broncos country, I'm gonna be honest, is one of the biggest NFL fan bases. As someone who grew up in the Midwest for the first half of my so far in my life, like I see Broncos fans even still back in Iowa, back in the Midwest, they're everywhere, man. We appreciate you carrying Broncos country all the way in Michigan, man. Do you have anyone at work or anyone around you that's a Broncos fan that you know? Have you met some friends that are
yeah, I met one guy who is like a security personnel at one of the schools, and he's got like the sickest Broncos man cave here. He actually like showed up in the local paper because he's got like every rookie card of guys like going back before my time even. So he and I only get to see him, once every couple months, but when we do, it's a good time. But otherwise it's like all you hear about is the Lions. They've never been good. I think their time of being good is very short-lived. And so yeah, this is really my outlet to like connect with other diehards anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that went, and like you said, I mean, it's great to see that. As someone who's a younger person trying to get into this community of YouTubing and influencing and sports reporting, it's like it's good to see guys like stories like you achieving that goal of being able to start one day and just continue to make videos, right? I mean, you talk about that, and I like to see that motivation, but I just got to ask you, man, like, did you expect it to kind of end up, obviously maybe not, a year and a half in, have 27K subs, but did you kind of see some of this coming, or is this just like,
no, definitely did not see it coming. And really the crazy part, I think it really is just the commitment to grinding every day on it, because the first 30 videos, now they have a decent chunk, like maybe like 200 or 300 views, but the first like 30 videos, it was my mom watching saying, we miss you, Ben, move back. And so I definitely did not expect it whatsoever. But I think it's like the fact that I couldn't do this for the New England Patriots. I couldn't do this for the Chicago Bears. It's got to be an authentic like love of the team. And I think whatever it is that you love in life, if you go hard at it, you will find other people who love it too. And so, maybe other passions I have, same thing could happen with, but man, for a young person like yourself, like you already have so much drive to, you said you've been doing YouTube since you were 6 years old. Like what Mr. Beast said, like he's been doing it since he was since it came out, and do
Yeah.
something every day, and it's gonna grow.
Yeah. I remember making videos in elementary school talking about sports, or I've always liked to do podcasts and stuff like that. So it's fun to be out there and like do that stuff. But I could ask you, did you have any previous experience with like video editing? Because I was gonna say your video editing is pretty good. Like, what's that
Yeah.
like
Yeah, so
behind?
that was actually one of my roles at when I worked in Longmont there. So I was familiar with it, but if I edited every video, I wouldn't, because I got 4 little kids. I don't have time to sit down, shoot the video, and edit it. So I do it all kind of essentially like what we're using here, but I use a program called OBS. And then what it lets me do is just like, hey, I pretend I'm going live, and I do 8 to 10 minutes. It's all I can commit to, with the craziness of having a real job, and then saves it right to my desktop, and I drag it and go. And if I ever grow the channel to being full time, then I could, maybe use some more of those video editing skills and do more edit. So I've when I have a free second, I'll edit a short or something like that, and I still absolutely love doing that.
Yeah, I've always been interested in video production. I used to, about the CTC. I took a
Yeah,
CTC class last year, the Intro to Video Production, and I loved it. It was a great class, and I really like making sports edits. I used to when I went to Altona for middle school. I was a part of a team. We made a video production team actually, and we started making student news, which you might remember they did that at some other Longmont middle schools that they
yeah.
made student news, and we started our own actually. When I got there, I helped start the sports, and I was the sports anchor,
Oh,
bringing the
cool.
weekly updates and coverage for all the Altona sports. I would go to all the games and record and interview the players afterwards and make it a highlight reel. So
That's
it's super
sick.
fun. I've been doing
Yeah,
this for a while now.
yeah.
So I like to hear, I was actually kind of curious about how you do it behind the scenes, because when I watch it, I'm like, you're like screen casting yourself over like Twitter and like, over X and like over all those stuff. And like, I do kind of like that idea of how you kind of go live and get it all together like that. That's
Totally.
really
Yeah, so I'd actually, as I was thinking about like, hey, how could I do this sustainably with the busyness of my life? One of the things I thought about was just like, hey, I could do it on StreamYard, because you can hit down there the present thing and share your
yeah,
screen.
yeah,
But I like, then the quality's a little less because it's laggy over internet, and then if you want the pro version, you got to pay for it. So I like that OBS lets me just do it all one time for as a free software, and yeah.
yeah. That's great. We got our first comment, Graham coming in saying what's good. Nice to see Graham on Raging Rides. Nice to see you get in the chat. We appreciate anyone who's watching and watching in the future. Again, I'm so grateful to see Ben here today, man. And so yeah, I like that introduction, man. We really appreciate what you've been doing, man. I just gotta ask you before we start previewing the Broncos, like this summer has been big for you. Obviously, we talked about some of the big interviews you've done. Marvin Mims, which is insane. Brandon Perna, who's one of the biggest Broncos
Mm.
creators, Locked On Broncos. I can't think of what the guy's name is, and then DMAC and
Yeah,
Dude Dad. I
yeah,
like Dude Dad.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, dad's a
Um,
man.
yeah, and you got to go to his. I assume was that his his studio? Is that his
It's like
house?
top secret place, like
Oh,
hidden, and
yeah.
yeah, you
I know he lives up in Fort Collins somewhere, but yeah,
yeah.
somewhere up
So
north.
he
Yeah,
like sent me the address, and I was like, What? There's nothing there," because I've driven by it, and then you
yeah.
get there, and there's a secret sign on the door that says a different thing entirely, and it was surreal, man. It
That's.
was pretty sick. Yeah.
I gotta ask though, how do you reach out to a player? Like, how did you get Marvin Mims to come on an interview? What is that through?
So I mean, it's your future line of work, man. It's like the agents kind of run a lot of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
find out their agencies, that's a good way in. But for all these, I just DM them on Twitter, and I think I've had several players be like, "Hey, because I'll put the player I'm talking about in the thumbnail or something like, "Hey, I've watched your video. That was cool." But Sean Payton has pretty strict rules for the players, and I think it's a good thing that we're not the Vegas Raiders where the inmates run the asylum. But Sean Payton has some pretty strict rules. So some of them
yeah,
have been like, yeah, man, I'd love to, but we kind of have a media blackout around these topics, and, that kind of thing, that you don't want to do any bulletin board material and stuff like that. Where if I get, Bo Nix on saying that the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs, that's getting played in the Chiefs locker room and stuff like that. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cool. I mean, you talked about it in that line of work, but I mean, the Bo Nix would be crazy. I tell you, if you ever get Bo Nix, you got to text me 5 minutes before so I can just go on and say hi to him. If you ever get Bo
Okay.
Nix on, I just
All
got
right.
to say hi to him real quick for a second.
All
But,
right. I'll see what
I
I can
think
do.
I think that's cool. And but it's a commission based thing. So it's like a price, like you have to pay to have the player like come on your to an interview, or is it like a free thing?
Oh, yeah, I mean, no, you definitely don't have to pay. So a lot of these players, will have essentially like a NIL deal type deal where, and I'll just make up a complete fictional example to not
Yeah,
put anyone under the bus. But like, let's say Bo Nix has a side deal with Buffalo Wild Wings. And so Buffalo Wild Wings will say, Bo Nix, I'll pay you $1 million, but you have to give us 3 million impressions through the course of this year. So then Bo Nix is like, okay, somehow I have to advertise Buffalo Wild Wings 3 million times. So he could either use his own personal social media and just blast out, I love eating at B Dubs. And that kind of hurts his brand because it's like, well, that's not why people follow Bo Nix to get an ad. And so instead, what they'll do is say, well, hey, if I hop on Dan Patrick and give Dan Patrick, I don't, that's maybe an old example. Do you know who Dan Patrick is? He's like my
yeah.
favorite radio guy.
I don't know
Yeah.
if he has a TV show. He still has a show. Yeah, I
Yes,
think.
he has a TV show and a radio show, but yeah, so like he could say, "Hey, I'm gonna hop on with Dan Patrick, and I know there's a million viewers on there, and I'll give Dan Patrick a 10-minute interview." And at the end, Dan Patrick always says, "All right, the floor is yours. What else should we know about?" And Bo Nix at the end of his interview could be like, "Man, can't wait to have all Broncos country supporting, and if you really want great wings to watch me fling it this year, go eat at B-Dubs." And then it's like, boom, there's a million impressions. And so in the same way, if you have a big enough following on your channel or whatever, people will come on in order to kind of make, as long as you give them a chance to plug their sponsorships and the deals they have, it's a
Yeah,
way
yeah.
kind of benefits both of you because you get a cool interview out of it. And at the end, they can plug whatever they'd like to.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm excited to continue to learn how all that works because obviously I know everybody knows it's not one cut. They're making multiple cuts of all that stuff and they're taking lots of different shots and they want to get the best stuff and all that editing that goes behind it. But kind of talking again into that money part when, like you have such a big enough following that you can have members on YouTube. I don't know how much it is to how many, do you know how many subscribers you need to get the members? Like, is it like
I think like 1,000.
okay, 1,000. Yeah, and I think that's cool because it's kind of like, do you look at this as like a side job for you? Like this is like, because I mean, you do get. I'm sure it's not a ton of money, but like a tiny bit extra. I'm doing this. Like, do you ever kind
Yeah.
of look at that?
Yeah. So I mean, certain people use it as like that income stream. I'm on a weekly show with a Raiders content creator and a Chargers content creator and a Kansas City one.
Mhm.
And the Raiders guy like makes more on his monthly memberships than he does than
Oh,
a normal job would. Like he's got thousands of members. I've never like I think I have 15 or something like that, but I've
yeah.
never really plugged it. And um but yeah, I could see it. I'm super blessed to have a real job that I really enjoy and like doing. So at this point in my life, it's more just that creative outlet, that chance to connect. And maybe if I quadruple my subs, I'll go full time.
Oh, well, I appreciate that because I see a lot of people like, I actually think like maybe last year I was actually a member of yours and Brandon Perna's, but like Brandon Perna will make sometimes subscriber or whatever it is, member only videos. And I don't,
Yeah.
you never, I don't think you've ever made a member only video. So
No,
every
no.
video can be accessed by anyone. They don't even have to have a YouTube account. And I appreciate that because then it's not all about the money, right? We're here to
Yeah.
connect with Broncos country and that's so important. And I honestly hope that never changes for you, that you can continue to be able to have kids like me because I mean, right? Where do we get our income from to watch these special videos? I got to ask my parents for the money.
Yeah.
We don't have jobs, and I know you know a lot of kids. I know so many Broncos fans that watch your videos. So many of my friends. So they,
That's
to
cool.
keep the platform free and to be able to continue to connect with Broncos fans, I think that's so important.
Oh, cool, man. Well, I'm glad you like it, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So great introduction. I think we're about halfway done now. So we should let's start previewing into this Broncos season. But I just want to go back for a second. I want to start by asking you a question, Ben. And it goes back to when you started a year and a half ago. I know you kind of said you started around when the Broncos were 1-5 back in 2023. They had just lost the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. They were going in the game against a Green Bay Packers team that I believe was around like they ended up making the playoffs, but they weren't too good to that point. And I remember, I guess that's around your first video, man. What was going through your mind as a Broncos fan when you back then? Like, how were you feeling? How were the vibes back then in 2023?
Um, like really, you don't even know because you're so young, but like my entire Broncos fandom, we've just been a dominant team, man. It was
Yeah,
like there was a streak where we didn't go 2 years in a row with missing the playoffs, and then it was that 10-year almost drought of like, what is this? Are we the Detroit Lions? And we lost early in that season to the Miami Dolphins 70-20, and it the way the team bounced back from it and like the confidence in Sean Payton's voice, I was like, dude, he could have been tanking for Caleb Williams if he wanted to. And we played that Chiefs game super tough. And
yeah,
like a team that gets mollywopped 70-20 and has a chance at this generational talent of Caleb Williams has every reason to tank, and they didn't. And so I knew, and so my videos were all like, hey guys, the season's not over yet. I still think we're going to make the playoffs. And it seemed like the craziest take in the world. And then we go and win in Buffalo. We beat the Packers.
yeah.
We really, if it wasn't for that horrible game against the Patriots that year,
Oh,
the Broncos would have made the playoffs with Russell Wilson. And I just knew Sean Payton is one of the best coaches in the NFL, and it's going to be a really fun decade to be a Broncos fan. And it sounded so stupid then, and now
yeah,
you got people saying they're a dark horse Super Bowl candidate.
yeah. I mean, Ben, I don't know if the Broncos players were listening to your first couple of episodes because they were 1-5 and they were doing too well, and then it suddenly felt like you were making these crazy takes, but then they were happening. And you
It
look at the
was
results, and going back to that 2022 season when they went 5-12 with Nathaniel Hackett, and that was just a disaster. I mean, to have a bad start to the season like that 1-5, it's like we didn't know we could trust Sean Payton. Our coach, we're hearing all this hype about a Super Bowl winning coach who I watch a lot of ESPN, and Stephen A. Smith is not the biggest Sean Payton lover. I probably saw the episode the other day where he said about Sean Payton saying that he's only had 6 teams who's ever going to win the Super. He ever thought was going to win the Super Bowl, and this is one where he was like, "Well, how many Super Bowls do you have, Sean? You've only been to one, and one NFC Championship that could have been a Super Bowl. We don't talk about that one." Saints fans, I like how Saints fans and Broncos fans have been pretty close lately. We've kind of had this good relationship, maybe with the Niners too. We're kind of becoming friends with a couple of teams, and it's cool to see that with Sean Payton.
Yeah, man, 100%.
Yeah, that's great. So when you started those videos, man, Broncos went on this crazy win streak. And as we continue to kind of break down what's happened in the last 2 seasons for the Broncos, I remember watching, because I'm a big college football fan. I knew about Bo Nix already. I remember watching Bo Nix when he was at Auburn. And I remember watching, because I like CU a little bit, and I remember watching that CU versus Colorado game when Colorado was 3-0, and CU went into Oregon, went to play them, and everybody was hyping up CU, and Bo Nix and Oregon just destroyed Colorado. I think the final score was like 42-6 or something like that.
Yep.
And everybody was like, dang, like as a Colorado kind of fan, you kind of like stopped the horse on the momentum ride, but it was kind of like, who is this Bo Nix guy? I mean, you already knew that he was like this 6-year veteran guy that was older than some active NFL quarterbacks. And, I was just kind of remember being like, maybe this could be our quarterback guy. And then I remember watching the bowl game. I don't know if you watched it was the Fiesta Bowl. Was that his last bowl game? It was one of those games. They played Liberty. I don't know why someone would put Oregon against Liberty. It was like Liberty had like a really great season. So they played Oregon, and Oregon just destroyed them. That's how Bo Nix went off. And I remember watching your channel, and I think you mentioned a lot that Bo Nix was a really good potential option. So all along, Ben, were you riding this Bo Nix train?
I was writing, we got to get a quarterback in the first round. And I had kind of thought like, hey, the Broncos should trade back in the first round for him. I didn't think he was worthy of the 12th overall pick in the draft. And I'm super glad that I was wrong on that, because he is every bit worthy of it. And it was really hearing that like as soon as the Broncos announced the draft pick, Sean Payton FaceTimed into the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah.
And
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick was co-hosting, and he just went on like he was talking about his first love or something. And he was like, he's the most accurate quarterback in college football. And we keep hearing all of the rubrics that Sean Payton scores a quarterback on. And Bo Nix is one of the best he's ever scored on that, like outscored Mahomes. And so I trusted Sean Payton to find a quarterback, and he came out and said he was going to be better than other people at finding a quarterback, and he definitely was.
Yeah, I had a really good feeling about Bo Nix. I mean, I went into that draft kind of expecting, unless there was kind of the McCarthy or Bo Nix, but I'm so glad we got Bo Nix, because look at what happened to JJ. He got hurt last year in preseason game number 2 or 3, and
his arm doesn't look that strong right now in camp, and
Yeah, it's like we are so lucky, but I think it's so cool because it's like we went from like the most bottomest pit, like it didn't feel like we had any hope. We just paid Russell Wilson. You know, we were in this debt cap. We didn't know what was going on, and then Sean Payton had to make those tough moves. He had to go and cut Russell Wilson. He had to go and get rid of some star players that you look on the Broncos roster that we were like, it hurt to see a lot of those players leave. And I think the same thing, like Justin Simmons, who's a really good, really good corner. He's not on the Falcons anymore, is he?
He's a free agent right now still, but yeah.
But to see him leave, and to see different guys like that, like it was kind of like we got to trust Sean Payton. He kept the core though, he kept the base, and he kept Cortland around. And I think like that extension that Cortland just had shows to what Sean Payton cares about Cortland's son. About Cortland is a big deal in this Broncos community. He's here to stay, and he's going to be a part of a potential Super Bowl team.
Totally, man. Yeah, Sean Payton is really batting about as close to 1,000 as you can right now. Like it's hard for me, even without my orange and blue glasses, to find something that I disagree with him on.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how, like, it's kind of like the media. You wouldn't expect his takes. He makes the choices that you don't expect. The media's out here like, you got to sign Tyreek Hill. You got to trade for Tyreek Hill. You got to get all these wide receivers. You're hearing rumors, and then Sean Payton does the completely opposite thing of what you think. He goes and, everybody's like, Caleb Johnson's going to be your running back, and he goes and gets RJ Harvey, who I had never heard of. I mean, I kind of knew a tiny bit of who he was, but he gets the guys. No one thought at pick 20 we were going to get to Jay. Like, that's like crazy, like to get Barron at 22. Like, it's like wow, like you weren't expecting that. I mean, no one really was.
Totally. Yeah, he talks a lot about how there's the media hype train and everyone in their mom's basement with their mock drafts, and then we score a team after, like, immediately after the draft. The draft grades come in, and that's just like the dumbest thing in the world, because it's like, hey, if you knew anything about professional football, you would be working for a team.
Yeah.
And I'm fine saying that, because like if I knew anything about football, I would be working for the Denver Broncos, and I don't, so I just get to talk about them and be a rabid fan and present the news how I see it. But yes, Sean Payton has constantly not let the media train or the media bus kind of drive the ship. He does what's best. And yeah, you just look at his you go back to the Saints, and it's like finding Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round. There's 4 running backs drafted before him, and everyone's like, who's this guy out of Tennessee? Makes all these all pros, and Dalvin Cook's out of the league, and all the guys ahead of him were out of the league, and Colston Loveland, or Marcus Colston, and the list goes on. At Jimmy Graham, all these guys, and Sean Payton knows better than we do, for sure.
He does. I remember reading those draft grades, and it's like Bo Nix, pick 12, C-. I saw C+. Even after this year's draft, I saw C- for the total Broncos draft.
Yep.
And I mean, dude, after watching last week's preseason game, no one talked about some of those late touchdowns and interceptions that we saw out of guys that were rookies. Pickett, I think of from that one interception. And what was the tight end that caught the last touchdown? Colt, what's his name?
Lucas Kroll, I think.
The last one.
Prieskin. Yeah.
Yes, Prieskin. Yeah. He's from, where's he from? Is he what? He's a rookie.
I want to say Iowa. He's not. You'd know if he was an Iowa boy.
I want to say somewhere out southwest, but it's okay. But I want to move into that now, previewing the tight end room, because I was talking to a friend about this earlier today, that when we talk about Broncos country, saying the Broncos haven't had a tight end like Evan Ingram since Shannon Sharp, which is back when you were a kid, right? Like, I wasn't even, that's pre me. I wouldn't totally agree with that. I think on the 2015 team, we had some good tight ends, but not as good, obviously, as Evan Ingram should be. But when you look at this tight end room, it's kind of quiet. I feel like people are talking a lot about the running back room. And I know we didn't see a ton of Evan Ingram this last week, but what do you think about this year's tight end room?
Yeah, I think it starts and ends with Evan Ingram for sure. And I think, the comparison to Shannon Sharp is like, we had Julius Thomas, who was a monster, but really he was just such a big bodied guy, and Peyton Manning could, basically throw the ball to like the top of a NBA basketball hoop, like literally, like I think Julius Thomas could jump up and put a quarter on the top of a backboard. So that gave Peyton Manning just this huge range and this huge catch radius, but he wasn't a great route runner, but he still broke NFL records. But the comparison to Shannon Sharp is that like Evan Ingram is a tight end in a wide receiver's skill set and
Yeah.
skill and
Yeah.
body. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, man, I think that's huge. And I think Lucas Kroll looked great in that preseason game. The first video I ever made that popped off was when we got him as a undrafted free agent and signed him mid-year. And I just watched his college tape and heard what Sean Payton said. I'm like, this dude is going to be a problem. And really, we haven't seen it, but like I think we're going to see crazy production from the tight end room. And then to have, Preskin Memphis is where I looked it up while you were.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he looked great in that preseason game. And then to have Caleb Lohner, the 7th round pick that we got that the Patriots wanted, the Jaguars wanted, and just I think had 20 total college snaps in football, but was a D1 basketball player, and all the like. It is so much easier to make the NFL than it is to make a college football team than it is to make a college basketball team. So, I think pretty much every NBA athlete could play in the NFL and exceed, like from a talent standpoint. Yeah. I think of all my time in school, like in all the schools I've worked in, there's no player who has ever made the NBA. But there's a ton of former students I've had who've made D1 college football programs, and a couple who've made practice squads for teams. And then one of my former students is the starting inside linebacker for the Chicago Bears. So like, the level of athletic talent you need to make a 5-man NBA team versus you got 22 people who make contributions in the NFL. So
yeah, it's great. Sorry, I'm just looking up. I'm trying to think. Niwot had an NFL player that played for the Broncos. He's a long time right tackle. Can't think of what his name is. Mike, what's his name? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No clue.
Played for the Raiders and the Broncos. Niwot has one player all time. Matt McChesney. He works for Ski on Altitude or 104.3.
Wait, I thought he played. He calls hockey. He played in the NFL. McChes.
Yeah, he played in the NFL. He played for the Jets, Miami.
Dang, yeah.
And he was on the Broncos. Right. He was on the Broncos practice squad. Yeah, so he's a DT, defensive tackle. Niwot's only NFL player all time.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy? I was thinking about when you were talking about a student. That's crazy. But yeah, I look at that tight end room. I think it's really talented. Just gonna overall, the other position I want to talk about before we kind of predict the season and go through the schedule a little bit is obviously I want to talk about the cornerback room and safety and all that stuff in the backfield, because Riley Moss is from Iowa. I've met him before. Cooper DeJean, safety for the Eagles. Now he got moved. I've met him before. When you live in Iowa, you see these guys around on campus. Yeah, I got you, Ben. And it's cool to see those guys succeed in the NFL. And Riley Moss, I don't think getting Barron at 20 is trying to say, hey, we're taking your position. I think it's saying we're going to have some friendly competition, and we want to push you to be the best version of yourself, because we don't want another Levi Wallace out there for you. Totally. We don't want to see that again. We can't trust that PS2 or Riley Moss is going to stay healthy all season.
Yeah, man, you saw the huge drop off that we had when both of those guys got hurt. Like, I think we win that first Chargers game if Surtain did go down with a concussion, and I think if Riley Moss is healthy, we win that Bengals game. He came back and played dinged up. So I really think you can't have too many. And I was looking for a video coming up here in a second. Like, I think the Broncos, like, 5th best corner is probably a starting corner for like the Miami Dolphins and other teams. So you can't be too deep there. And I think the same thing with outside pass rush, that we got 4 guys I feel super confident in there. So I love Riley Moss, man. And
great guy.
He's a great white hope.
Yeah. So we got about 5 more minutes. So I just want to go through the schedule. I want to ask a couple of questions. We don't need to break it down game by game, but I want to talk about, for you, I'll start with my top 5 biggest games for the Broncos, and you can go with yours. But for me, man, I look, just kind of break through the schedule. Week 1 through 3, that game in week 3 is so gigantic. People do not realize how much that game at the Chargers in week 3 means to us. Because when you look later in the season, when you're playing Chargers in week 18, where that game might matter, but it also, you never know, those week 18 games are kind of a toss up because, you know, the Broncos and the Chargers could be competing for potentially the AFC West. They could be competing for the 5 or the 6 seed. They could be doing something like that. But to have a division game in week number 3, when you've already played 2 teams that I'm pretty confident the Broncos can beat, the Titans at home and the Colts on the road. Colts might be a bit closer, but we've seen Sean Payton struggle to start the season in the first 2 weeks, in his first 2 years. And throughout the last 5 years of Broncos history, I think the best the Broncos have started is 3-0 in 2021. Yeah, they started 3-0 because they played dinky teams in 2021. So that's my first important game is week 3. I gotta pull up the Broncos schedule because I don't have it fully memorized. But then the other one that I think is obviously big is right after that, the next week after you play the Chargers, you obviously have, it's the next week that you have Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming for Monday Night Football. Yeah, that's week 4. That game is so gigantic. Those next 3 games after the Chargers games are right there on my list. You have Monday Night Football against the Bengals. I assume we're going to be wearing our midnight navy. We want to see another 92-yard Marvin Mims touchdown. That's one on there. And then my third one is that Eagles game on the road that's going to be super tough. Just going to go quickly here. Fourth game that I look on the schedule and I say you got to win is the game against the Kansas City Chiefs at home on November 16th. You got to take at least 1 out of 2 on the Chiefs. That's my fourth important game. And then my fifth one is the Christmas Day game against the Chiefs. I know I didn't put the Chargers game in week 18 on there because I don't know if that game is honestly going to decide a playoff spot. It might, but I think winning that first game in SoFi in week 3 is more important. That's a hot take. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think Sean Payton is the winningest coach in NFL history in the month of October. So I'm picking us to sweep the month of October. We got a weird schedule this year where we play in London and then we don't take a bye week, come right back. And Russell Wilson is returned to Denver that next week. But you're
actually playing.
Yeah, exactly. I think looking at it, to me, you're spot on. All of our most important games are going to be AFC opponents just because the AFC is just so stacked that I really think the top 4 AFC teams could beat any team in the NFC in the Super Bowl. So yeah, I think that Texans game is going to be sneaky tough. I think the Broncos should have beat them there 2 years ago with Russell Wilson. And you got a bunch of guys on this roster who went to Texas or are from Texas. And so that's I think when I got to interview Marvin Mims, he said he'll have tons of family at that game. So give me that game's important. I think we need to sweep the Raiders, which I'm not worried about. And then I think, Christmas Day, just because it's going to ruin my whole family's Christmas. We got to win that. And then, give me your September 21st game because that is my birthday. So
Chargers game. Yeah. I already bought tickets. I'm going to one game this year. I'm going to the Jaguars game on December 24th. Ooh. I'm going to see Travis Hunter's return.
Sick.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, last question before we get you going. We're gonna do record prediction. I just want to say one more. I just was also gonna say one more thing. The Cowboys game. Do you know the Broncos have not lost to the Cowboys since 1990 something? In the year in the 2000s, the Broncos have not lost to the Cowboys. We've owned the Cowboys.
I can remember
America's team. We're at least America's team.
Totally did. I remember, beating them in Dallas with Peyton Manning on a fake handoff little bootleg, and he ran, and it was hilarious. And then I remember when they were really good and we were really bad, they came here and we just mollywopped them. So that'll be a great game.
They were good too, and we came in there and beat them with Teddy Bridgewater. So I'll just go through my record prediction. I'm just going to give you all my losses. I got the Broncos going. I see a lot of 11-6s. I feel like 12-5 is a great number. I wish they would have gone 12-5 last year. I feel like last year should have been 12-5, but I got 12-5 with losses to the Eagles. I do have that game against the Chargers in week 3 actually being a loss. Eagles, Chargers, Texans is my third one. I think that's one's going to be tough. The Commanders game, I do think the Broncos are going to pull out. I think that Christmas game is going to be hard. And then the last one I have on there is that's my fourth loss. And the last one I have on there is that week 18 game against the Chargers because we might already have the AFC West.
We're going to just rest our starters. I love that, dude. Yeah, I've said I think our floor is 11 and our ceiling is 14. And I think, man, it's going to be I think we need to start hot for sure because
Oh
you
yeah.
like you said that stretch of going Chargers, Bengals, Eagles, London. That's a hard stretch, man. But yeah, I think if we come out of that stretch with 4 wins, we're gonna be in good shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching our show today. He is the man, Ben. Make sure to check out his videos every single day. Hopefully, Ben, we can do another future collab, maybe a game, maybe a post game, maybe something like that. I would love to have you on again or to be on your show. It would be amazing, man. I know, man, checking off that bucket list, you already did. Marvin Mims did all these careers, and now you got the youngest Broncos sports reporter
Look
you'll
at this,
find
dude.
around. We're gonna have to get your son into some Broncos sports
I was just
reporting.
gonna say, yeah, in
Yeah,
a
get him
couple
on
years,
the
my
Beat
son
Start
might give you a
podcast.
run for
Yeah,
your money. But
yeah.
yeah, dude, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's awesome, and I'll make sure I sub and
Oh
check it
yeah.
out. And yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much. Hey, as we always say, it's never been a better time to believe.
Holy
Broncos.
baby.
Let's go.